My name is Lila Monroe, and if you had asked me when I was a child what I wanted to be, I would have said happy. Not rich, not powerful, just happy. But happiness always felt like something I was meant to serve, not receive. I grew up in a small town in Virginia. My mother died when I was 7. I barely remember her voice, just a soft lullaby she'd hum while braiding my hair before school. When she passed away from an unexpected stroke, everything changed. My father, a quiet, defeated man, remarried within a year to a woman named Marlene, who came with 2 kids of her own, Tori and Blake. From the beginning, it was clear I didn't belong. Marlene made it sound sweet at first. Lila, you're such a help around the house. You have such a nurturing soul. But by the time I was 10, my chores weren't just setting the table. I was scrubbing the floors, ironing Marlene's silk blouses, and cleaning up after her kids while they laughed at me from the couch. My father barely noticed. Or maybe he noticed and didn't care. He started drinking more, disappearing for long stretches of time. When he was home, he was asleep. When he was awake, he was silent. By the time I was 15, they had moved me into the tiny laundry room, converting it into a private space so Tori could have my old bedroom. There was no bed, just a cot, no window. I started to feel like a ghost in my own home. The real betrayal came after Dad died. He had a heart attack at work. I was 18. I still remember how cold Marlene's voice was when she told me, "Well, I hope you can find somewhere else to go. Lila, this house isn't going to keep running itself." Somewhere else? I was barely legal. I had no money, no job, and no real education because I had missed so many classes taking care of the house. But then came the reading of the will. I sat in the corner of the lawyer's office, invisible, while Marlene smirked like she already knew what was coming. She clutched Tori's hand, whispering something smug under her breath. The lawyer adjusted his glasses and read the documents carefully. "To my daughter, Lila Monroe, I leave the house and everything within it. It is my hope she finds peace and builds the life I never gave her." The room fell into stunned silence. Marlene shot up from her chair. "That can't be right. He said he'd take care of us." But the lawyer continued calmly. "There is no mention of you or your children in the final version of this will, Mrs. Monroe. It's dated 3 months before his death. They made me the maid of the house. But now, I owned it. You'd think I would feel victorious. I didn't. I felt scared. I had the deed to the house, sure, but I also had 3 people glaring at me like I was a villain. You don't even have a job," Tori spat. "You wouldn't know what to do with a house." Marlene looked me up and down. "You think this is your chance at a fairy tale? This house is ours. Your father lied. I didn't move out, but they didn't either. The house was now mine, but I was still the outsider, still the maid in their eyes. For weeks, I kept trying to keep the peace. I cooked meals for them out of habit. I did laundry. I fixed leaky faucets. Part of me hoped they'd treat me differently. That now, with the balance of power shifted, they might respect me. But things got worse. One night, I found all my clothes dumped outside, soaked in the rain. I opened the door and saw Tori smirking from the upstairs window. Another time, Blake, who was always silent around me, deliberately let the dog loose from the backyard. That dog was the only thing that gave me comfort. I cried for hours searching for him. I started locking my bedroom door. I stopped talking. I started to realize that owning something doesn't mean you feel safe in it. But I wasn't going to leave. I began taking small steps toward independence. I used some of the savings Dad left me to take online classes. I got a part-time job at a cafe downtown. I began keeping a journal, documenting every threat, every insult, every time they tried to sabotage me. Then one night, something happened that changed everything. I came home from my shift at the cafe and noticed smoke coming from the back porch. My bedroom window shattered. When I ran in, I found a small fire smoldering in my cot. It was contained, thank God, but it was clear it had been started on purpose. My journal was gone. My clothes burned. Someone had tried to destroy what little I had. I called the police. Marlene tried to twist it, of course. It was an accident, she said, with fake tears in her voice. She left a candle burning. But I never lit candles. When the police left, she cornered me in the hallway, her voice low and poisonous. You don't belong here, Lila. This house doesn't erase what you are. What am I? I asked, shaking. She smiled. You're still the help. That night, I didn't cry. I stayed up, staring at the ceiling of the living room, the one place I still felt like I had a right to. Something inside me changed. Something broke. Or maybe something was born. The next morning, I went to a lawyer. I showed him the will. I showed him the police report. I asked what my legal rights were. He told me the truth. I had the right to evict them. I didn't do it right away. I wanted to do it right. I documented everything for the next 2 months. More verbal abuse, more threats. One time Marlene actually slapped me after I refused to cook dinner. I recorded it. I filed another police report. I filed for a restraining order. When I served the eviction notice, Marlene screamed like a wounded animal. You little thief. You think you can kick me out of my home? No, I said calmly. I'm taking back mine. Tori packed her bags with tears in her eyes, muttering about how unfair life was. Blake didn't even say goodbye. The day they left, I stood in the driveway as they drove away. For the first time in years, I breathed, but my story doesn't end there. Because rebuilding a life from the ashes of one where you were never loved, that takes more than just a legal win. That takes soul. That takes strength. And I wasn't done yet. After Marlene, Tori, and Blake left the house, the silence that followed was both eerie and healing. The walls no longer echoed with slammed doors or whispered insults. The air felt different, lighter. For the first time in my life, the house felt like mine. I spent the first few weeks in disbelief. I would walk from room to room just touching the furniture, the walls, the doorknobs. These things I had once polished for others were now mine. Not because I was given them out of kindness, but because I endured, because my father, in his final act of clarity, had seen me, truly seen me. But victory is never clean. There was no parade. No one clapped. No one brought over warm casseroles to welcome the new homeowner. I was alone. Some nights I'd sit in the kitchen with a cup of tea and remember how many meals I prepared in that space for people who never thanked me. I'd think about my childhood, about how many birthdays I spent cleaning up after Tori's parties while no one remembered mine. I wasn't angry anymore. I was tired, exhausted down to my bones. I used part of the savings left from my father to fix the place up. New windows, repainted walls. I donated the old furniture and bought pieces that felt like me. For once, I wasn't trying to keep things looking like they belonged to someone else. I also enrolled full-time in online college. I studied interior design, something I had always secretly loved. My notebooks filled with sketches and color palettes. I would walk into each room of the house and reimagine it, transform it. It became my therapy. Then one day, a knock came at the door. I opened it to find Tori standing there. She looked different. Skinnier. Her makeup was smudged, and her eyes darted around nervously. "Lila," she said, hugging her arms. I'm sorry. I didn't say anything." She took a shaky breath. "Things haven't been great since we left. Mom's drinking again. Blake's living out of his car. I just wanted to say I was wrong. We were all wrong." The old me would have softened, would have welcomed her in, made her tea, and tried to rebuild something broken. But I wasn't the maid anymore. "I appreciate that," I said, "but this isn't your home anymore, and I'm not the same girl you used to boss around." She blinked. "So, you won't forgive me?" "I forgive you," I said gently, "but I won't forget, and I don't owe you anything beyond this moment." She left, looking hurt, but I didn't feel guilty. I had spent too many years apologizing for simply existing. Weeks passed. My business dreams began to bloom. I started sharing my designs on social media, before and after photos of rooms I had transformed in my own home. People noticed. A small blog featured my work, then a local news segment. Soon after, I had clients. I named my business Restored Spaces, because that's what I had done for myself. I got a call one evening from a woman who wanted her mother's old house redesigned. When I arrived, I froze. It was Marlene. She opened the door, her face pale. "I didn't know it would be you," she said quickly. I nodded. "Would you still like the consultation?" Her house was falling apart, paint peeling, roof sagging, rooms filled with clutter and bitterness. She looked at me the way someone looks at a ghost. But I didn't gloat. I didn't insult her. I did my job. I walked the rooms, took notes, and told her I'd send over a plan. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "You turned out better than we deserved." I simply replied, "Yes, I did." I left the house feeling free. Years went by. My business grew. I began speaking at events. I published a book about reclaiming your space and your life. I even opened a small design studio downtown. People respected me. Clients trusted me. And most importantly, I trusted myself. One spring morning, I stood on the porch of my home, the same home where I once cried myself to sleep in a cot, the same home where I was treated like nothing. I sipped my coffee and watched the sunrise. Inside, sunlight poured through the windows I had installed. The walls were now painted a soft blue, and the rooms were filled with things I loved: books, art, photos from my travels. It no longer looked like a house built for someone else. It looked like me. There was a time when I believed I had to earn love by doing chores, by being small, by staying silent. But I was wrong. I didn't need to be anyone's maid to prove my worth. I was the owner of this house, of my life. And for the first time, I was truly, deeply happy. The kind of happy that can't be taken away. The kind that's built one hard one step at a time. And that's a home no one can ever evict me from again.